Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and we're still with you on today's edition of Cairo Local Time. And as promised earlier today, we discuss the Africa 2018 forum that was just recently held in the Red Sea resort city of Sharm El Sheikh, of course, under the auspices and in attendance of President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. And I'm delighted to be joined this afternoon in the studio by my guest, who's just also come back from attending the Africa 2018 forum, Mr. Samih Adly, a businessman. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us.
Thank you very much
and
for
coming in
me.
this afternoon. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So you attended the Africa 2018 forum, the COMESA, that was held in Sharm El Sheikh. Tell me a bit about your participation.
Well, we participated among the group of businessmen who joined this forum to explore more the development and the opportunities that can arise in Africa for Egyptian companies, because a lot of talk was happening there for this specific purpose. The first day of the forum was dedicated for the youth, the Young Entrepreneur Day, and Women Empowerment Day, but the second day was more geared towards leadership and the collaboration between Egypt and the different African countries. It was very important for us to attend as a company or a business, and it was also very inspiring. The first day I found it very inspiring to meet all these younger people with a lot of ideas and thinking out of the box, and a lot of sessions were going on. There was really this inspiring atmosphere in the air, and I found this, moving into the digital age and all sorts of things. This was very important.
Tell me, Mr. Samih, how important are such forums for really integration when it comes to different businesses from different backgrounds, different countries? As you know, Egypt is going to be heading the African Union next year. It will be under the leadership of Egypt. How important is it to hold such forums in Egypt in order to allow open opportunities for countries within the African continent?
The main underlying theme of the entire forum was this, actually, that Egypt is an integral part of Africa, and that Egypt and the Egyptian leadership, as President Sisi spoke and was very clear on that, Egypt is committed to the development of the continent. I want even to say that Egypt is now in the position to lead sort of this development.
Yes.
So it was really important to prove or to assert the fact that Egypt is an integral part of Africa, that all of the countries will collaborate in development and development issues, and a lot of these issues were actually discussed.
Yes.
So during the second session, actually, of the second day on leadership and collaboration, there was head figures from the donor banks and the donor agencies like the IFC from the IMF, the African Development Bank, the African Bank. So, and there was a lot of talk about how can we develop the atmosphere for development, and what would be the role of Egypt, especially, as you said, being a leader, being a leader of the African, being the leader of the Union of, for Africa for the 2019. So it was really important, and a lot of issues regarding the development were discussed.
Development, when we speak about development, we can't move far away from the issue of sustainable development. Sustainable development in Africa is very important because Africa throughout history has been looted. Its raw materials have been taken. So there hasn't been a push for sustainable development when it comes to African countries. How much was this discussed during the forum?
It was discussed in length, and there was, I don't want to say a debate, but there was a little bit of debate, because the point of view that most of the people adopted was that as sustainable development has to be built on two pillars, really. These two pillars are education, on one hand, because, and I would like to elaborate here a little bit, because now Africa is 1.2 billion people. In 2040 and all the way to 2050, more than half of the working force in the world will be in Africa. So this is, as much as might people think it's a threat, it's an opportunity. With the right education and the right development of youth, this first pillar of education and youth development can be used for sustaining development. The second one, which is a more practical approach, is the infrastructure.
Yes.
And that was the main talk. And this was perhaps the main focus of President Sisi while he spoke, because he said, for any development to happen, we need infrastructure. Infrastructure as in roads, electricity, power generation, whether it's using old or renewable energy. So these are the two pillars really, which is education and investment in youth, and infrastructure and investment in infrastructure. Only using these two, in the opinion of all the people who are there, can development be sustained.
Tell me, I'm sure you interacted with a lot of different nationalities and lots of African guests that were visiting Egypt. Tell me, how was their impression of Egypt? How keen are they when it comes to, for example, investing in Egypt or doing business with Egyptian business persons? Tell me a bit about that side of your attendance.
Yes, everyone I met a lot of people actually from different nationalities, whether from Rwanda, Mozambique, Nigeria, New Guinea, a lot of people from a lot of nationalities. I can just go on and on and on. But everyone was very positive towards working with Egypt and working with Egyptian companies. And before I get into the business side of it, everyone was really impressed with Sharm. Sharm is beautiful. It's
Yes,
just beautiful. It's very clean, very organized. The
weather was nice as well.
The event was very well
Visuals,
organized. The venue was just, for me, I haven't been there before. It's my first year to attend. The venue was amazing. So the venue, the organization, everything was really spot on, as they say. So this right away generated positive energy.
Impact, yes.
Yes, and positive impact. So and all the people are keen to work with Egyptian company, and I think perhaps this is the most important thing, is that there is a lot of countries, a lot of opportunities out there. All we need is to organize ourselves and collaborate. That's it.
In your opinion, what are some of the biggest challenges, besides organization, that face such opportunities, as you say?
Well, I think, and that was again an idea, that there should be more platforms or more ways to get people together. So the African Forum is just one event that takes place once a year. But there is need for more. Doesn't have to be necessarily conference, doesn't have to be necessarily forums, but platforms of the sort, more digital transformation of the way to collaborate. I think this is the future really, is that how can people connect more, get to know where the opportunities are, what are the rules of investing in a certain countries. These are not readily available. They are more and more available, but still I think there is some effort that needs to be done.
Right, so Mr. Samih, now President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi also announced the creation of an investment fund in the information technology infrastructure in Africa based on some of the most up-to-date technological systems. Do you think how much is such a system needed in the African continent, and what could be the advantages of establishing such a system, in your opinion?
Well, such a system is crucial. It's crucial for the entire process to go on. The main, again, this was the main themes, is to connect.
Yes.
And without such a system, there is no connection. And without connection, there will be no collaboration and no development and so forth. So an infrastructure to connect, because a lot of the countries, including Egypt, by the way, of the African countries, including Egypt, they lack still the proper connection infrastructure for connectivity as the more developed countries like Europe and the States.
I always hear stories through several interviews, for example, that we can export specific fruit, for example, or vegetable, or import specific fruits and vegetables from different African countries, but because of the lack of transport infrastructure, it would cost triple what it costs to get it from Europe, for example. Yes. So these are some of the examples that hinder intertrade between African countries.
Africa is 55 countries. A lot of them, unfortunately, are landlocked. So road transportation, in addition to maritime transportation, for the countries that have access to ports and so forth are again very important. But the thing is that there is no infrastructure, adequate infrastructure, I mean when it comes to roads and ports, for such a trade to take place. Again, this is very important, and it has to be developed, of course. In addition to the what we said is the infrastructure for connectivity.
Yes, COMESA also called for opening negotiations with international institutions to complete the very old, very well-known Cape to Cairo road. This has been a project, I think, since years ago, Cape to Cairo, and how to connect Cape to Cairo. Yeah. How feasible is this, in your opinion, now with more collaboration, more meetings like what was held here in Egypt? How feasible is this Cape to Cairo road in actually materializing from Cape to Cairo?
Well, you touched on a very important point. I was talking to some of the people I was talking to from Africa. They were talking about, it was in French, what they called l'axe, which is the axis, the main axis of Africa. And they think it's very feasible. And this road from Cairo to Cape Town is not just a road. It will be a road, railway, a main line for high voltage transmission. So it is really an axe of service that goes all the way from Cairo to Cape Town, and then it can branch out. And this again goes to the point of connectivity, where we can connect everything together through road, railways, electricity, grid, and of course infrastructure for connectivity, which is the internet.
Indeed. It's not only, of course, the issue of goods and products. I know you're a businessman, but there's also the issue of services. Between African countries, there's also an import and export of services, whether it's expertise, whether it's, for example, there's lots of projects that Egypt has already done, like health practitioners, teaching staff. Was that an issue that was discussed amongst the kind of forum discussions?
Yes, of course, because when we go back to the issue of sustainable collaboration and sustainable development, the trading of goods is not key, or it is very important, but it's not key. It's the services really, and the knowledge transfer.
Yes.
So now, for example, Egypt is providing services for construction for perhaps one of the big projects is the dam in Tanzania, for example, this being built by Egyptians. So the transfer of services and knowledge, whether that in construction or in education or in IT, and moving back and forth, this is really very important, is getting know-how and exporting know-how at the meantime.
Not just services also, but COMESA countries agreed to cooperate with other African countries in the fields of governance and anti-corruption. A big challenge facing a lot of countries in the continent is the issue of security, stability, corruption, and there has been collaboration to exchange expertise when it comes to these important issues. How important is it, and how much was it highlighted during the discussions?
It was highlighted by the president while he was making his comments after that the donor agencies spoke. He said that while we talk about how much time will it take to get the funds for investment in infrastructure, we also need to think about governance and fighting corruption and fighting terrorism.
Yes.
So stability and political stability, again, is one of the key factors in the equation for development. And of course, there was a lot of talk about governance and anti-corruption. I think this is the first step, really. This is the first step that should be taken in order to make all the foreign investors feel they would have more feeling of trust, and they would be more willing to provide the funds.